For years now, Senator Chuck Schumer has held the job he long coveted, majority leader. But it's a job he might soon lose if Republicans succeed in winning back control of the U.S. Senate this November. In the final installment of our series, 25 and counting, marking Schumer's 25th year as senator, reporter Kevin Fry looks at how the Brooklynite has wielded his power, where he succeeded and where he fell short.
It was a promotion amid crisis and by the slimmest possible margin. The nation, still gripped by a pandemic, had just endured a divisive national election and an attack on the U.S. Capitol. That's when Democrats pulled off victories in two runoff elections for the U.S. Senate in Georgia, taking control of the Senate for the first time in 6 years. With those wins, Chuck Schumer got the job he had long sought, and the one allies anticipated he'd eventually secure: Majority Leader.
There is much to do, and we are ready to get to work.
Are you surprised that he's risen to the role he's in now?
Not in the slightest. I think I worked for Chuck Schumer for about 5 minutes before I realized he was probably the most driven and relentless person I had ever met, with an ability, in some ways, I think, to shape reality.
The Senate was split 50-50. Schumer had little margin for error. If Democrats hope to pass their agenda and take advantage of a rare trifecta in Washington, running the Senate, House, and White House, he would have to be creative.
It's what the founding fathers envisioned.
But Schumer had been preparing for this role for years. As a freshman senator, Senate lions like Harry Reid and Ted Kennedy took him under their wing. I asked what he learned from them.
There's a time and a place to be bipartisan and get things done, but there's also a time and a place to stand up when we think the other side is taking advantage, doing the wrong thing for the country. And you have to do both as leader. You can't just do one or do the other, or you're not doing your job fully.
When he began as majority leader, those two approaches were on display. He oversaw passage of the first gun reforms in decades, a bill to spur the domestic production of semiconductors, and an infrastructure law, all with bipartisan support. At the same time, Democrats went it alone on a major climate bill.
I think the last Congress was a culmination of his greatest ambitions. He's a visionary, and he's somebody who's very practical minded. So he has the big vision, but then he does the practical things to make that happen.
Schumer says he did not emulate his Democratic predecessor as majority leader entirely.
Harry Reid was more of a solo type guy, and he'd make up his mind. I'd be the person he'd talk to before that. I try to involve everybody.
Schumer keeps in contact with his diverse caucus constantly, gauging each member's unique needs back home, legislatively and politically.
Gotta call you back.
His old school flip phone, a constant presence.
Chuck made it his job, even before he was leader, to try to understand what everybody's challenges were. And I had a basket full of them.
Ideologically, Senate Democrats range from Bernie Sanders on the left to Joe Manchin on the right. Achieving unity was not easy. Schumer, though, relishes the legislative process.
To get a caucus to work together, even though we're from different states with different viewpoints, it's like almost baking a beautiful cake. You feel good about it.
Some Senate Republicans, particularly those with ambitions to rise up the ranks of power, paint Schumer as a fiercely partisan warrior, a New York Nancy Pelosi.
He's just a partisan hack.
The problem is Chuck Schumer. The problem is Nancy Pelosi.
Someone willing to put Republicans in a tough spot if it's to his party's advantage.
He's not interested in making policy. And Kamala Harris, she's not interested in making policy. They're interested in ridiculous show votes so that they can win elections.
His efforts to flip key battleground Senate seats have also generated tensions with possibly useful Republican allies. Senator Susan Collins, a moderate from Maine, reportedly was furious with Schumer in the aftermath of his efforts to defeat her in 2020. But Republicans who have worked across the aisle with Schumer offer praise, even if they'd prefer to see a member of their own party leading the chamber.
He has a lot of deeply held convictions that I don't always share.
But that said, there's another part of his personality that's really important, and that's of a legislator. That's of someone who understands how to negotiate and come up with compromise.
Senator Todd Young of Indiana and Schumer collaborated on semiconductor legislation before turning to work on artificial intelligence.
There are two types of legislators here. There are workhorses and then there are show horses. And then occasionally there are legislators like Senator Schumer who can be both.
Despite his legislative wins on climate change and infrastructure, Schumer did not succeed on all of the goals for the Democratic trifecta. His party's so-called Build Back Better agenda was pared down in order to corral support for more moderate members in the chamber. Also notably left undone, passing new protections for voting rights, which became mired in a fight over the Senate filibuster. Then Democratic Senators Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema objecting to modifying the 60-vote procedural threshold.
Leaders are only as powerful as their majority of members allow them to be. They are strong when the party is united and they want to do something, but they look weak and ineffective if their party is not united behind them. And the filibuster was one of those instances, given the fact that they didn't have votes to spare, where he didn't have the votes to do it.
When Republicans took control of the House last year, much of the major legislative work on Capitol Hill ground to a halt. Though Senate Democrats did confirm many more of the president's judicial nominees.
Madam President.
These days, Schumer has taken to invoking Robert Caro, the acclaimed biographer of former president and Senate Majority Leader Lyndon Johnson. Caro, Schumer says, has called him the Jewish LBJ.
Ironically, I started out in politics protesting the Vietnam War and disliking Lyndon Johnson. But I came to respect Lyndon Johnson as a guy who got things done.
It's that drive to do things, Schumer's former aides argue, that defines him. One aide telling me that the Brooklynites' favorite axiom is, quote, always be happy, never be content.
When will you be content?
God knows. My staff will tell you I'm happy. I love them. They're great. But I'm always pushing myself. I think I push myself harder than I push anybody, but I push my staff pretty hard, too.
Any plans to retire? Any idea when you'll know?
No. I just, you know what? I have not had a master plan. I just did my job and it all worked out. So I'm just doing my job. Lord knows what'll happen next.
The November election, which will decide the next president and whether Democrats can hold on to the Senate majority and Schumer can remain the majority leader, will help to write that next chapter. In Washington, Kevin Fry, New York 1.